All right, hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Tina and Karen Do the Tube. I am Karen.
This is Tina.
Okay, not the cartoon voice this week, I see. Trying to be a little more mature.
Switch it up.
Yeah, it's more mature. Just when you announce it like a sportscaster or whatever. Anyways, joining us for this week's podcast, we have Jeremy. Jeremy, how you doing?
Yes, I'm doing very well. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Now
We usually like to use a female name for our guests. So if you want to go by any female name that you'd like, I know Jonathan went by Lena, and Ty went by, was it Carmela?
I don't remember. It doesn't seem that important. But you do need an honorary female name. So if you had to pick one, what are you going to be?
Jessica?
Jessica.
Okay, Jesse.
Is Jessica the natural feminine version of Jeremy? Or am I thinking, is there any other better ones?
That I do not know. Because I know...
You didn't spend time thinking about this growing up?
The name Jeremy comes from, like, Old English, so you'd have to... You'd have to ask a linguist. That's not my area of expertise.
Really? I didn't know that. It's Old English name. Okay, so speaking of your area of expertise, Jeremy here is a third-year law student at Seattle University. We actually didn't clarify this. What kind of law are you actually, what's your emphasis?
So once I graduate, because when you go to law school, you take your general first-year classes, which cover sort of the common law as it descended over the years from England, that is with moderate differences kind of varying the same across the 50 states, and it's the same in England and all common law countries. So places basically, the happy way of putting it, places England colonized, invaded, all that stuff. But then you take electives, and then once you then graduate, then you kind of pick your area based on all the classes you took, and what the area that I'll primarily be involved in is criminal law. So
criminal.
Hey, is that official? Have you kind of decided that wants to be your...
Yeah. Once I get started, that's what I'll be doing. So, and I do think it's something that I'd like to get at. It's definitely...
But you sound almost a little reluctant to it. It's not like it sounds like the way you're describing it is that's what I'll be doing.
Criminal defense or criminal offense?
Oh,
well, I would...
prosecution.
Criminal defense.
Okay.
Prosecutors are pigs, and so I would never want to be a prosecutor. That would be awful.
You want to be a public defender?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Well, the only reason I have some like hesitation in my voice is because through talking with current lawyers and just like professors, and what I know about the legal field in general is it's very common that somebody will they'll think like something's their passion and it's what they want to do, and they'll go out and they'll start doing it, and it is awful. It is terrible. They realize that this thing they thought was going to be like they were going to be the next Atticus Finch or whatever, and it sucks. It's terrible. It's awful. Or they realize they're good at it. Like something like that, you have to do like a lot of trial work, and maybe you did good in mock trial, but then once you get there and it's the big picture, and you just think it's not fun or it's not enjoyable. You don't like the long hours it might entail. Another example is as a criminal defense attorney, you're going to have a lot of clients that and will end up in prison no matter how good of an attorney you are. So that might take a toll on you. People that you gotten to know and established like a relationship with, and then you see them get whisked off to prison, so that can mentally cause depression. So I definitely it's what I want to do, and I have my reasons for why I am sort of passionate about it. But I also always recognize that life can always throw curveballs at you, and it's never a good idea to be too invested.
You brought up a few things. Tina, it sounds like you had something you want to say.
Oh, I was going to say there's more money in criminal defense too.
No, that's...
I would say, yeah.
Common misconception?
Yeah.
Well, if you're like somebody like a very famous defense attorney, Alan Dershowitz, who's also in the news recently, if you represent the high-powered clients like OJ, or sport athletes who get in trouble with the law, or actors and actresses. Well, then you can make a lot of money.
It doesn't sound like that's the norm.
But like
Yeah.
Not everyone's representing O.J. Simpson.
Yeah. In terms of, the reasons I would want to be a defense attorney, the money is not it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Money is nice as always, but it's never been the driving factor for, why I decided to become a lawyer and, why to.
So you're thinking more of ideally defending the wrongfully convicted.
Wrongfully accused.
Convicted, just defending people who are accused of, what I consider to be crimes of sort of poverty and crimes that I feel the criminal justice system unfairly is sandbagged with sort of quote unquote solving, but that's not the answer to it. I mean, a lot of drug crimes. I mean, even things like theft, robbery. And I'm not saying that these are like good things and that's why it's worthy to defend them, but it's that these crimes are, in my opinion, on a overall level, are better solved through improvement of the economic standing of the people that commit them. And I think the criminal justice system unfairly kind of railroads these people when the only reason they commit most of these crimes is just because they're in such a bad situation that they kind of feel like it's their only place to go.
I feel like we're getting a little ahead of ourselves because we need to lay the foundation a little bit about who you are, Jeremy. I mean,
All right.
These are all good talking points, and we'll come back to them. But first off, let's go back to you said what made you want to be a lawyer. Like, tell us the brief story of Jeremy. Tell us, or Jessica, fuck it. Tell us the brief story of what made you want to be in law and how you sort of like gravitated towards criminal law. Because when I talked to you a few years ago, it was more about you were talking about environmental law, so that seemed to have changed.
Well, I still care about the environment.
Right, but you chose a different focus.
Yeah, and so it's more okay. So I went to a college still in Seattle. I went to the University of Washington. Go Dogs! And I'd always been sort of lawyer was always kind of there on the career path. I always knew I wanted to do something like post just undergrad because I always felt there was something more to it. And then I just kind of gravitated towards the law because, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I watched a lot of law movies as a kid, and I always thought it looked cool. And people have told me that I argue a lot, which I guess is true.
That's good. What's your favorite legal?
Was there one movie in particular?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's your favorite legal drama or legal comedy even?
Well, A Few Good Men's obviously a classic. Like Criminal Story. The Verdict with Paul Newman is great. To Kill a Mockingbird is an absolute classic.
To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yes?
Sorry, I was gonna ask, like, what do you think about Los Angeles County banning To Kill a Mockingbird?
Oh, is it because the book has the N-word in it?
Yeah, it was called racist, which is kind of funny when you think about it, because the whole book is antithesis to racism. But
exactly. Well, so I will say I do not agree that it's racist. I don't think it is. I can see the viewpoint that nowadays it can look as like kind of a white savior type of book. It's like, oh, the white defense attorney has to save the black man that's being unruly, being railroaded by the justice system. But that is more, and I can't remember the name for the trope. There's a TV Tropes page. TV Tropes, one of the greatest websites ever created, about this.
Really?
Which is it's just which is basically when a movie or like a book or a piece of media comes out, it's very progressive and it's very kind of forward for the time when it was made. But then years later, you look back and you're kind of like, well, okay, there's maybe some stuff that seemed problematic about it. Now, I still don't think really To Kill a Mockingbird fits in with that because, I mean, it's literally set in, like, the 1930s Alabama. Like, how would you do this differently? So I disagree with that. I think that's stupid. Same like why, they try and ban, Huckleberry Finn as well. For the same reason they say it's racist. It's mostly just people who... It's virtue signaling. It's people who want to appear like they're like doing something to help racism, but they're not actually doing anything, and it's disgusting in my opinion.
You know what my favorite legal film is?
What?
My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah,
That's great.
It's a very well liked one in the legal community because even though it's a comedy, it tends to do things a lot more realistically.
So it's pretty accurate.
Yes. But so one of my all time favorite legal dramas is it's a much older movie. It's called Anatomy of a Murder, with Jimmy Stewart as the defense attorney, and that's another one that's very highly praised for being more realistic and in its portrayals. And that one's also interesting because George C. Scott plays the prosecutor, and the judge is played by the attorney for the U.S. Army during the Army McCarthy hearings.
Oh, an actual judge.
Yeah. Well, and that movie it's often praised for its more, if you want to look at it badly, sort of cynical view of the legal system, because a lot of the trial strategy and the way the lawyers work is less like purely arguing the law and more them trying to sort of use like the inherent human flaws in like a jury system. So like, there's one instance where Jimmy Stewart's character offhandedly makes a remark about like a piece of evidence that it was supposed to be excluded. And then, the prosecution objects and the judge sustains the objection and tells the jury to forget it. And then Jimmy Stewart's, or the client, the defendant, turns to him and says, well, how can the jury forget something that they've already heard? And he turns to me and says, they can't. That's the point. Kind of saying like, ha, 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 we got a fast one by him. One thing throughout the movie Jimmy Stewart's character does is he constantly complains because George C. Scott's character is a prosecutor. He is like a state prosecutor from Lansing. And so he always says like, oh, God, I'm just a humble country lawyer. And they got this big city prosecutor here to like play to the jury because the jury's, local, all people from like the local area. So it sort of touches on that very that aspect of the legal system, which can get lost in other movies because it's part of the legal system that a lot of people usually don't want to talk about, but it's definitely there. And it's like something you have to acknowledge.
Yeah, there's not a good workaround around it, basically, as long as you have an actual jury.
You'd want to believe that it all came down to logical arguments, but it doesn't, sadly.
Exactly.
It's funny, is that the Anatomy of a Murder? Is that where that whole like sort of big city lawyer talk? Because that's been parodied by so many things. Like I remember Futurama did a great parody of like that whole talk, but I thought that came from Inherent the Wind.
Country chicken lawyer, yes.
The chicken lawyer, yeah. So I thought that sort of talk came from Inherent the Wind. Is that what the movie's called, or is that the book, or is it both? The monkey trial case, that one?
Yeah, well, so the monkey trial is the Scopes trial, and it was a play, and the play is called Inherit the Wind,
right?
Which was also made into a very good movie with
Clarence Darrow. No, wait, that's the actual lawyer.
Darrow was the actual attorney. God, what was it? It's the guy from Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. He also did Spencer Tracy.
Oh,
yeah, it's Spencer Tracy, and I can't remember.
Let's drop that for a second. It's not that important. It's kind of funny that we've been talking about film for almost the last 10 minutes, because actually when I first met you, I think your passion was actually in film, and you said you wanted to be a film critic. Is that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've always loved movies. I still technically do. I don't get to watch as many as I'd like because law school does take up a large amount of time.
Of course.
But I do still try and keep up with what's coming out. I still try and watch movies that I've wanted to see over the years. Last week I watched a movie called The Stuff, which was a hilariously bad 80s sci-fi movie.
What's the best movie of 2020?
Oh, 2020. I haven't seen almost nothing this year.
Me neither. Really, that's the thing.
I wanted to see Tenet, but Christopher Nolan is put it lightly, is a fuddy-duddy, and
that was
you can swear.
No, you can swear. Like this is all going on the internet. It's not the radio, so fuck it.
No, well, he's a fuck. I love his movies. I hate his attitude. I hate any. Martin Scorsese is this way too, where he was like, the Avengers aren't real movies or something like that. It's like, you're just stupid. You're just old and stupid.
You see that Christopher Nolan's too pretentious? Is that the word?
I think you're dumb if you're like, oh, this movie's only good if it's seen in IMAX with like 400 surround sound. It's like, okay, dude, come on. That's not like what? If your movie's only good if it's seen with like like space stations type technology, you've not made a good movie. You've made like a good engineering project.
Well, Tina and
It's
I
more art than movie.
Tina
Yeah,
and
a
I
good
watched
movie
Tenet.
A good movie has story and acting and good technical aspects can really elevate a movie. It can make it really good.
Yeah,
But it's not the end all be all of a movie. And just the I despise any anti technological views because I think they're just, it's okay to criticize like tech companies when they do like stupid things, but the whole idea that we should like halt the progression of technology or the changing of like how to view things is to me just outrageous. Streaming, in my opinion, has been one of the best things to happen to movies and TV.
this could be a very awkward conversation, considering you realize I have a copy of the Unabomber Manifesto, and not only do I have a copy, it's fully annotated. Like every single fucking page is littered with my notes.
Wow.
This could get. We could just change.
Well, if you're somebody that doesn't like technology, that's totally fine. But if you're like,
We say on the computer.
if you're in a field which has like technology is part and parcel of it, and then you get mad when it creates a new like format or just way of advancing that industry. I don't know what you were doing in the first place. Like, what were you thinking? Like, I don't even understand. Were you mad when like VHS came out, and there were people that were like that. It's literally, to me, it sounds like the same people are like, oh, we can't have sound in movies. What are you talking about? We can't have color pictures.
It's fucking not real.
Yeah, I can't believe people weren't able to watch what movie they would have wanted to watch before like VHS. It was just all based on, broadcast TV.
My thoughts on I almost said Jonathan Nolan. Christopher Nolan is the guy can tell a very good story. He does very poorly with human drama. I don't think he likes humans. I think he feels like they're a problem. Like he'd rather tell a story without humans in general. He just wants
and this is going to sound maybe like a criticism. He's a better George Lucas.
Ooh.
He has good stories and good universes.
Ow.
But he is bad at like creating meaningful characters and like dialogue. Like Inception, like the idea of like going into somebody's dream. That's cool. That sounds interesting. And Inception's a good movie, but it doesn't really. He doesn't take it much past that. And like I haven't seen Tenet. It's about like you can like rewind time or something.
Yeah, that's essentially it. I sent Tina a meme that said like this is the plot of Tenet. What was it that I sent you?
It was the meme from Spaceballs where.
Yeah, you're right. It was.
Where what's the guy's
Rick
name?
Moranis
The TV.
as Dark Helmet.
Rick
They're looking at the television screen.
This is now. When can now be then or yeah.
That's the plot of Tenet.
Interstellar was great. Had fun, interesting stuff, but he just kind of does. He needs some help. The problem is he always has his brother be his like writer. I bet if he brought on some extra help in the writing staff, his movies
There's some nepotism there.
Again, I still love his movies. I still think they're good, but he's.
Now, you said A Few Good Men was your most favorite law-based movie. Is that a reason why you're going into the JAG program, or was that a big factor?
That movie wasn't a big factor.
Okay.
Choosing to go. Getting back to it. So I started. I'd always been interested in law, and I had a lot of care about sort of, both legal and political issues. And I thought a lawyer was sort of my best way to, in terms of a career to, stay up with and fulfill potentially meaningful change in, I guess, society at large.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
say
that again.
As anyone should try to find something fulfilling.
So then when I started law school, I was like, well, one way to kind of kickstart my career and I guess, give back in a way is I decided to go into the military and at least start out as a judge advocate. And so that's how that plan started. And that's what I'll be doing for the least first 6 to 8 years, my legal career. I'll be a JAG in the military.
Now, for the listeners that don't know what JAG is, you want to tell them a little bit about it and how it works?
Acronym stands for Judge Advocate General, and it's the basic is that you're just a military lawyer. Generally, you participate in what are called court-martials, which is just the military's version of a criminal trial. It's called court-martial because the military justice system is kind of within itself, and so it's not like a civilian court. If that makes sense.
Yeah, like the NFL's.
Yeah.
It's a joke, but the NFL likes to handle things in-house.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's the issue is that the military is, they're all it's federal employees. Most of them live on like a base, which is federal jurisdiction. So it's like if you committed a state crime, it would have to be done. You couldn't really try them in a state court because the state wouldn't have jurisdiction over like the area. It wouldn't really make sense to try them in the district courts, like the federal courts, because one, that would just be, too much, like way too much extra stuff because they're already packed up and whatnot. And so that's kind of
right to a speedy trial.
Yeah. And then that's the other thing is there's also sort of the idea that part of the military's ability to have, what's the word I'm looking for, to maintain its integrity is to show that it can like self-discipline and properly like handle internal issues within itself. There's the sort of idea of like, if a service member commits a crime, it's not just an attack on, like whoever the victim is or like the state. It also looks then bad back on the military itself. So for the military to maintain order and discipline within its ranks, it has to have its own system to punish those within it. And there's things that are bad in terms of like military order and discipline that wouldn't necessarily be a crime in like any like state. So a common example I always give is when you're in the military, you're not allowed to call in sick, like fake call in sick, basically. So sometimes you work like Target, it probably sucks. Some days you wake up, you're like, I don't want to go to work today. So you call in, you're like, oh, I'm sick. Yeah.
Can't do that.
You go in the military, it's called I can't think of the word. It's called malingering. And it's a criminal offense, and you can get tried and convicted for it.
Jesus Christ!
Wow. Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Who would have ever thought the military would be strict?
Just keeping that more kind of strict handle on things, and because of the jurisdictional issues, it just makes sense for them to have their own little handling it. And then there's differences in the court-martial system to like a civilian court. So in a civilian court, you always have a jury. Which is supposed to be, a jury of your peers. It's supposed to be 12 kind of random citizens in the community. But that's not how it's done in a court-martial. The literal court-martial is, it's called the panel. And it's usually, I think, I might be getting the numbers wrong of it, but it's like you get 5, and it's all officers, and then they're the ones who judge you. And chosen by, so the way it works is you have the commander of a base, or like a regiment, or however it's set up, and they're what's called, the convening authority. And so they pick the panel members, they pick the judge, and then they basically set up the court-martial. And for now, as you can imagine, that kind of sounds like there could be issues of prejudice. What if the commander hates the accused, and so he purposely picks like 5 panel members that are like friends with him or whatever. So a long time ago, those fears were still around. They kind of are still today. But basically, what Congress did was they passed a what's called an affirmative defense to a crime. Basically, if you get charged, you can then you can admit to it, but you can say, well, the trial is now unfair entirely because of what's called unlawful command influence. So if it's viewed that the convening authority, so the commander that set up the court-martial has basically put their hands too much into the proceedings, it gets dismissed automatically.
It is quite a bit different, but that's why military have different sorts of rights and waive certain sorts of rights when they join.
Would you be in favor of the military adopting more of the civilian sort of court procedures, or are you actually in favor of the military having its own courts?
I think it's fine for them to have their own courts. I mean, I guess I'm very biased because the fact that they have their own courts is why I'm going to have a job one day. But I definitely do think that I mean, no system would be perfect. Like I said, if letting the states handle anything could unfairly cause, I mean, it might interfere necessarily with, there could be national security issues at play if
outside political influence.
Yeah, like maybe a state doesn't like that a base is based in it, so they just start arresting en masse soldiers and sailors or whatever.
Holy crap!
So there's for it to have its own. I do think that in some issues, maybe some more oversight might help, because there definitely are. I mean, there's criticisms people have of it. There's people think that they, don't handle sexual assault cases as well as they could. And, there's arguments that sometimes they are a little too lenient on.
That's always the criticism whenever someone says we want to handle this in-house.
And so maybe putting some civilian oversight over it might alleviate those concerns. But I definitely think it has its place and it has its purpose.
I might have missed this part of the conversation. I stepped out to get a drink. So did you have to go through basic training?
I did. So what I went through is what's called Officer Candidate School. So I'm in the Marines, and so every Marine officer has to go through the same training, which is there's various ways you can do it. But what I did is it's a 10-week program, and it's similar to boot camp, where you get your initial military training where you kind of learn the military lifestyle. So I finished that. I got commissioned, and then I came back to finish up my law schooling.
Interesting. Okay.
And so going through that, and then. Even through my second and third year, I wasn't too sure, kind of what I wanted to do. But then, recently I've just kind of gone to criminal defense because post-conviction relief is kind of related to that, basically helping people that I feel have been wronged by the justice system, because I think it's important because we sort of uphold it as this, great thing. But I also then think it's important to recognize that it does have many flaws and many systemic issues that there isn't necessarily any perfect solution to get rid of. So it's important to then fight and root out those issues wherever.
Nice.
Was there? No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Karen.
No, I was going to ask. Was there any specific case that comes to mind when you want to fight these injustices, or is it more just a general? Observation of the system?
It's more the second one. I mean, so recently, so I guess one movie I saw that came out this year that I really enjoyed, more so the history behind it, because once I read the history, I didn't like the movie as much because the guy who wrote it is a good writer, but he also shoehorns his political opinions into things, so changes history because of it. But basically, Netflix released a movie called The Trial of the Chicago 7, which was a movie released, I think it was back in, I want to say October, around there, about a group of activists who were arrested following the 1968 protest. Just minor history lesson. Basically, in 1968, you had Hubert Humphrey, who was Lyndon Johnson's vice president, running against Eugene McCarthy and Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy famously was probably going to be the front runner, and possibly very likely due to the popularity of his brother, probably potentially would have won the 68 election, was shot and killed, assassinated. So then it came down to Hubert Humphrey and Eugene McCarthy. Hubert Humphrey was Lyndon Johnson's vice president and was thus pro-Vietnam. McCarthy was anti-Vietnam War. Humphrey was selected to be the Democratic candidate, and basically all hell broke loose at the Democratic convention. And following that, Nixon obviously won the 68 election. And so he wanted to kind of make a show of what he viewed as these, rioters and whatnot. And so he arrested 7 leaders of various organizations and he put them on trial. And the trial became famous for numerous violations of people's constitutional rights to fair trial. The judge was most infamous for being extremely biased against the defense, and he made it very well known. He had one of the defendants was a defendant named Bobby Seale, who was affiliated with the Black Panthers. His lawyer had fallen ill with, I want to say like gallstones, like 2 days before the trial, and the judge refused to delay the trial until his lawyer got out of the hospital, and so he basically was denied, his counsel. Then Bobby Seale was refused to represent himself, and Seale started making a stink during the trial so bad that the judge had him bound and gagged for like a whole week. So he'd literally come to the trial and he would sit in a chair and he'd be gagged up. He couldn't speak, couldn't get up. It was very, very bad looking. There were other things. And so, I mean, the defense attorney the main defense attorney got cited for contempt something like 20 times. And eventually they were found guilty. Well, it goes to the appeals court, the Seventh Circuit. And the Seventh Circuit basically said that the trial was so unfair that they vacated the convictions and refused to allow him to be retried.
Wow.
And so Aaron Sorkin, who was the writer I referenced earlier, wrote a movie on it that came out on Netflix. It's an enjoyable movie. He very, very harshly misrepresented a lot of the defendants' views, and he made them seem not as radical and extreme as they were, which ticked me off because, I get that not every historical movie needs to be perfectly accurate in every way, because at the end of the day, you're trying to just tell a story and make an enjoyable film. But if you're going to use a historical event, because he rewrites it to push his political views, which is why it annoys me so much. If he was kind of an apolitical guy and he just didn't want to go too far in depth on things, then I wouldn't be too angry. But he kind of screwed it up in that way. But that's just one example of things like that happen.
Kind of wash the narrative a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about Braveheart. No. If we're going to talk about just a general philosophical question, when a movie is portraying a historical event, do they have an obligation to represent it accurately, or can they alter the narrative to sort of produce their own message from it? And that's why I use Braveheart. Braveheart, for any history fan, is a great movie thematically, but it is one of the most historically inaccurate pieces of trash anyone could ever watch. And I love Mel Gibson as a filmmaker. As a person, he's sort of a dipshit. But as a filmmaker, he's got real talent. And that's the problem. The movie starts off... Okay, I'm getting off track. But what are your thoughts on Braveheart?
I like Braveheart. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember enjoying it. I think it's a good movie. When it comes to... do you have an obligation? I would say no. Every filmmaker is perfectly entitled to make the movie they see fit, but just as much, and then critics and viewers a movie can be rightly criticized especially if things are changed so much that it either misrepresents the historical narrative, or kind of if it's about a person. So let's say you make a movie about... well, let me use as I was talking, Chicago. So one of the characters in the movie was an activist, an anti-Vietnam activist. His name was David Dellinger, and one of the things he was most famous for was that he was I don't like using this phrase, but he was a radical pacifist. He most famously he was a conscientious objector. Even in World War II, he refused to ever fight in a war. And there's a dumb scene where they make him get really mad, and he starts beating up one of the federal marshals in the courtroom.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
How does a radical pacifist beat up a federal...
Exactly. Well, so that's what I'm getting. If you misrepresent history or a historical movie against that, it does a disservice to whoever you're portraying. To me, that's a problem. If you change it, just to make it more entertaining,
more of a parody,
more interesting or whatever.
Parody's a whole other thing.
Or relatable. So an example, and this gets criticized for different reasons, was have you ever seen the movie The King of Scotland?
Is that the one with Forrest Whitaker? Yeah, Lazy Eye McGee.
Yeah, and so that movie has James McAvoy playing a doctor character that was apparently his confidant, but it's entirely made up. That's fine because that's to give the audience a conduit with which to follow events. So something like that is fine. Changing a character or a historical person to fit a different narrative that is completely away from whatever they believed in, I think is wrong. If you made the Gandhi biopic and he pulls out a gun and starts shooting British people, it's okay.
Gandhi
Well,
too.
hold up.
Yeah.
We're gonna bring up Gandhi. Gandhi wasn't opposed to violence. I know that seems radical to say, but it's true. He was in favor of peaceful protest, but he said if peaceful protest doesn't work, then we will use violence.
Mhm.
I don't know. That's a little off topic, but I just want to throw that in. He's one of it's funny because he's one of history's most famous pacifists, and rightly so. But at the same time, he wasn't necessarily on a moral level against violence. That's the reason I brought it up. He
It's like,
just thought it was better to go peaceful, and if peace didn't work, then he had no problem with violence.
Yeah. Well, and
But
that's,
most movies won't bring that up.
I will.
and that's Dr. King kind of said the same thing.
Right.
He always said like, hey, we should, we don't want to use violence, but then he was like, well, but if you come and like beat us up because we like drank out of a water fountain, like what do you think's going to happen? I mean, this isn't.
Mhm.
I always
So-
enjoyed the quote from John F. Kennedy: "Those that make peaceful protest impossible will make violent revolution inevitable."
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Do we want to segue to protesting?
actually, but if we were going to segue into that, I had a quick question, more personal to Jeremy, because I don't want to get too much into politics, but since we did segue into it, Jeremy, you're from a pretty conservative family, but you consider yourself probably more of a progressive, correct?
Yes.
How do you think that came to be?
Can I get back to that? I need to use the restroom real quick.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Then let's all take a break because I need to refill my drink.
All right.
Okay.
sound-
All right. Is he back?
Nope.
Okay. We'll just continue to edit this
Wonder if
part
he
out.
has to take a shit. If he does, it's gonna be a while.
Should we go on or should we? No, let's just wait for him to come back. I mean, because like the whole podcast, I don't know if we're gonna do the Beat Tina segment. It doesn't really fit with
the kind of way things are going.
yeah, the Beat Tina segment is good when we have sort of a guest rather than an interview.
Okay, yeah, this is kind of more of an introduction than a
Yeah, with like Jonathan.
just a chat.
Yeah, I distinguish between a chat and an interview. Between interview is when we're asking the whole subject of the podcast is the person we're talking to, and a chat is we're going to talk about other things, and this is like a guest who's going to also commentate, like Jonathan was. Oh,
See him back?
I think.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm ready to go.
Okay.
Woo, what you drinking?
Oh, I just got water right now.
Oh, come on.
Oh, smart man.
I gotta keep an eye on what I say. Gotta not say anything too crazy.
That's all right,
I was wondering
Jessica.
how much you drank during the playoff game.
I just had a couple beers.
Okay.
But to answer, where
Hold on. I want to rephrase my question because would you actually characterize what I said correctly?
yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I didn't know. I mean, I know your brother pretty well. I know your dad okay. So I assume stuff, but I didn't know much more than that.
Well, I guess you could say it started with watching large amounts of George Carlin
Ooh, good.
in high school. Still to this day, easily one of my favorite comedians. Probably my favorite.
On your Mount Rushmore?
Yeah,
Probably
he's
your
up.
favorite. Ooh.
He's in
And
my
just,
top 5.
I mean, I know he's a comedian, so I mean, I didn't think he was like the smartest man who ever lived, but a lot of especially his criticisms of religion and religious values and sort of, doing things just because like some very old book tells you to is dumb and not making sense. So then from there, I mean, that most certainly made me fall off of any of like the modern American conservative movement because it's so tied to it, and their views. They're like, oh, you have to hate gay people because the Bible says so. It's like, well, that's dumb because I knew gay people and I have gay friends and they're not bad people. So kind of started it, and then just living in Seattle, living in the city, seeing sort of the hardships that are faced by young people and the homeless and the poor and just the downtrodden. It just kind of made kind of just molded me to have a more, you know, I despise the term bleeding heart, but kind of have that.
When did
viewpoint
you first start watching George Carlin?
Oh God, probably in middle school.
But that's okay. So you think George Carlin had more to influence your political worldview than moving to Seattle? Because those are big time lap. There's a big
At least-
gap there.
At least initially, at least in terms of he kind of, I guess I would say, started the path because he, I was when I was a kid, I went to church some semi regularly. I went to communion, and that was part of me. I do remember in 2004, mainly because my parents told me to. I liked George Bush. I didn't do a lot of research, but I thought I liked John McCain in 2008, mainly because my parents did.
Oh God.
Oh, I remember a moment when I was in maybe it was later than that. I think it was in 10th grade. I read a story about how I think it was Norway treats their prisoners, and I thought it was oh my God, how can they treat prisoners this way? Prisoners deserve to be executed on the spot.
Holy shit.
Which literally never even consider something like that nowadays. But so I just started, so okay, maybe it was in high school. That was also around the time I met a friend of mine whose name is Kevin.
Kevin.
Yeah.
I don't know Kevin. This is a big deal to some people apparently. Tina, who's Kevin?
He's just he's a good soul.
Apparently. I never got a Kevin. Of course, my name's not Kevin, but still.
We had a lot of classes together, and he always he came from a more liberal family, and he would kind of tell me why some of the stuff I would spout didn't make any sense. And I was like, oh well, put it that way, and then I'd do my research, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, I get that.
His parents are lawyers too, right?
They both went to law school. His dad is still a lawyer. His mom, I think, left the profession because she hated it. It happens a lot.
More common than not in the law.
And then just growing up and watching the world unfold. I mean, another big one is on late nights, junior and senior year, I would stay up and I'd watch The Daily Show and The Colbert Report, which are both, I still maintain, fantastic shows. I don't like Stephen Colbert's
current CBS show.
No, I preferred Colbert when he was on the Comedy Central as well. I don't watch is CBS he's on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't watch
But
it.
I mean, I do understand why he kind of called it quits. I mean, the Colbert Report started as a counter to, or at least a satire of Bill O'Reilly and Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck, and all those guys are now they're nobodies. I mean, I think that internet shows that some people watch, but for the most part, they've all kind of gone away. And his show didn't really fit in the new regime of, Hannity and Tucker Carlson, those guys. So it didn't really work with the way things are changing.
The less bombastic characters.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then of course in 2016, I had, I supported Senator Sanders because I still think that a lot of his ideas could potentially work. I don't think they're very politically feasible anymore. I just think there's too much of an uphill battle right now. But you at least, the modern Republican Party is filled with just great people who are in many ways varying degrees of detestable to
wearing barbarian outfits and raiding the Capitol.
Well, just watching them fall head first for the president and not really doing anything to rein in his arguably worst impulses it's just infuriating to watch, and it has almost certainly forever very unlikely I would ever support the Republican Party ever.
Do you think the Republican Party in 2020 is much different than the party you grew up with in the 2000s?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, definitely. There's no comparison.
A party that impeached Bill Clinton for, and I want to make clear I'm not defending his actions.
Perjury?
Dismissal. well, there was perjury, which
It depends on what your definition of the word is though.
lawyer standpoint, he made. But in general, his relationship with Ms. Lewinsky, I do not think is appropriate or was appropriate, and I think he does not get criticized enough for it.
Let's be honest, though. If you were married to Hillary Clinton, you'd want out too.
Yeah. But anyway, so and the whole thing. Oh God, we have a president that does something like that, and commits adultery, and that's why they said like, oh, we can't have like gays be in the military because being gay is a sin and it's wrong. And then, I mean, now the leader of the party is a thrice married, serial adulterous man who's like sleeping with porn stars, and so, totally different. I'd say certain underlying rage of many of the followers has always been there. They just had no choice but to vote for people that weren't as bombastic. They but it's certainly, I think, in general.
So you probably actually do enjoy that the Republicans are more pro-gay now than back in the 2000s, though, right?
Yeah, it's better that they don't want them to be like killed, or that the amendment.
I don't know of any. Okay, hold on. Let's not go throwing rack accusations of that. I don't know if anyone ever advocated for killing gays. They just didn't want them getting married.
So I guess you're right. I mean, nobody's pushing for an amendment anymore to like define marriage as one man, one woman.
Right. So. So that's one thing you will say that the Republican Party has improved upon, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I'm looking at numbers right now. Back in 1994, 38% of Republicans said homosexuality should not be accepted by society. Now 60%.
To me, that's still too much. I don't know.
No, I agree. I'd wish it was higher too, but I mean, it is different than it used to be.
Yes. I mean,
same with like their probably thoughts on marijuana too.
Yeah, marijuana is another one that they've pretty much basically said, you know what, marijuana's fuck it.
I mean, that's like a majority. I mean, yeah. Well, that's one of those issues that
one of the Trump supporters in the Capitol smoked a doobie. So let's point that out. Like, I don't think they're anti-marijuana, and smoking up marijuana in the Capitol building, that doesn't really seem to jive.
Yeah, no. Well, it's one of those. Marijuana is one of those what I consider very strange issues, because I mean, obviously it's still illegal in some states, and they probably still prosecute it heavily. But you have like this hodgepodge, where like some states like you wouldn't even know it's illegal. Some states probably don't even care. Vast majority of people support its decriminalization, legalization, but for some reason, there's no political will to do it.
Yeah, I don't agree. I don't understand that either.
I mean, and what I read is like, oh no, you don't understand. Like, the Christian fundamentalists, they still hate it. They still think it's like the devil's lettuce, and maybe.
Sorry, I never heard that phrase before. The devil's lettuce. I like that.
Really?
I never heard that before, but that's funny. I like it.
Yeah, well, because coffee was always the devil's drink, and then so.
Fuck that! I love coffee.
I do too, but.
What are you, a Mormon? Jesus Christ, this sounds pretty extreme.
Well, when people first, because it used to be in ye olde days, people would go to their local tavern, and they'd be like, oh, the king, he sucks. But then they'd get drunk, pass out, and just go home. But then coffee shops started opening, and they were like, hey, this king really sucks. And then they'd drink coffee, and they'd be like,
then to actually do something about it.
What was it, Gadsby's? Tina, was it Gadsby's?
Oh, in Virginia?
In Virginia.
Alexandria?
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't want to derail the whole conversation, but there was that tavern that you and I went to in Alexandria, Virginia, and it's just an ale house with beer and food, and there's a painting above the fireplace of the founding fathers getting wasted.
Yeah.
Like seriously, like they're falling.
Perfect.
They're falling out of their chairs. They're so drunk.
But yeah, I mean, again, I'm not privy to the inner conversations of congressmen. I don't know why it hasn't happened. I mean, there's even some congressmen like, what's his name, Matt Gaetz, who's a congressman from Florida. He's like legitimately one of the most conservative members of Congress. He loves Trump, and he was like put forward a bill to like decriminalize marijuana. So I don't know why it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Isn't the former Speaker of the House from Ohio,
who kept marijuana for years now has stock in a marijuana company?
He's the largest I think, stock owning shareholder in Ohio, which is just insane. So it shows you just how much different the party is, and I I was actually curious, because you live with a family of mostly conservatives or moderates, probably. I'd probably call them.
I even I mean, maybe my mom might not, but even dad like knows people that have started using it, and he's like, oh well. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was actually kind of more alluding to, like, do you have to feel like you have to self-censor your views a lot of times? Because I know Karen, probably has views that are more towards the right.
Oh,
And
fuck yeah.
he lives with a bunch of
Trust me, I am the
coworkers
most like
and
right-wing
friends.
person you know.
Yeah, and he feels like he has to self-censor even sometimes, or he can't bring up certain subjects, and
Oh,
so I'm
absolutely.
just kind of wondering if you have the same.
I keep things under the bus. I mean, if I'm out with my friends, I might, call for health insurance executives to be thrown off of the Space Needle.
Jesus Christ.
I'm at home, I'll just say that they should be investigated for fraud. So as
But
an
you wouldn't say that around your family.
no, I moderate things, I keep it together, but I also
Well, I'm
always,
glad that you moderate your views on murder around your family.
The law has for years recognized that killing is justified in certain situations. I simply think that similar to self-defense or defense of others, victims and insurance salesmen should be included.
Interesting.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it is a serious thing where white collar crime is, rarely,
Heavily executed.
mhm. Yeah, and it just shows you how much money can influence, certain
Yeah.
situations.
But anyway, so yeah, I mean, but I always, I don't, I moderate some of my views, but I never go with the flow. And if somebody says something I think is particularly, in my view, abhorrent or just like flat out wrong, I will speak up and make a point. Especially if it involves going back to, what I'm doing is the law. So recently we had somebody over who was very adamant that Mr. Trump would remain in office come January 20th, and that he was going to overturn the results. And
Oh no.
I was like, whoa. I don't care who you voted for. I can pull up the federal law. It's Title 3, Section 15, and read you exactly what's going to happen on January 6th. Notably, the mob was not included, but in terms of how the going to go down, and I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And if somebody's like, oh, somebody's like, well, one thing I hate is whenever people, you see this on TV, that the defense attorneys are always portrayed as like bad people. They're always portrayed as like snide and like unscrupulous, and they're like happy to like represent like murderers. And I hate it because it's like, it's the Sixth Amendment of the Constitution. It's right there. You have the right to have an attorney. And then it's like, well, what should we like get rid of that? Should we like force people to represent themselves and like fail miserably and then like go to jail?
Mm.
I mean, people call themselves like, oh, I love the Constitution, I love the Bill of Rights. But it's like, well, but I feel like a part of you doesn't, because when it's like provisions are used.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, why do we have to treat prisoners fairly? Like, okay, well, there's this thing called the Eighth Amendment. Like, literally, the people who founded the nation, like, the thing they thought was the eighth most important thing was that you don't treat people like garbage just because they've been convicted of a crime.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was actually, speaking of movies in 2020, one of the ones I watched this year that I really enjoyed was the Richard Jewell movie on HBO made by Clint Eastwood. I don't know if it was dramatized at all, but it definitely kind of gives you a look at how the media and prosecutors will just go after someone just because they
attorney
have to.
who represented Richard Jewell in a lot of his defamation suits against news media.
Yeah, the Sam Rockwell character, right? I think he played his attorney.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know if that's the right one. The guy I'm thinking of is this guy. His name is Lynn Wood.
Oh my God.
He's an attorney out of Georgia, and he's become infamous for being extremely pro-Trump. He's filed multiple election lawsuits for him down in Georgia. They've all failed.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, he is spouting the have you heard of the QAnon conspiracy theory?
I think you'd have to live in a corner of Alaska not to at least have heard of it.
Well, for the fun listeners who love a good conspiracy theory, the theory is that there is a cabal of media and political elites that are raping children and killing babies to drink their adrenochrome.
Wow, shit.
Yeah. Anyway, this Linwood guy's part of it, and he's been going on Twitter recently. He says that like John Roberts has like kidnapped a 15-year-old girl and is like raping her.
Oh my god.
Jesus Christ.
But anyway, so it's funny because he became famous, and he's only a famous attorney because he represented Richard Jewell, and now he's some crazy fuck.
Wow, did not know that. You should always follow up on your historical films.
Since we're on the topic of QAnon, I just wanted to throw out the fun fact: the Barbarian of Capitol Hill, not Capitol Hill, sorry, the Capitol. His online Twitter handle is Q Shaman. Okay, just want to throw that out there. All right. This has been an interesting conversation. I know we can continue it, but I think we had a little bit of a hard out for Jeremy, right? So we're at the 58-minute marker, and there was a couple other segments I wanted to get to, but we won't have time tonight. Luckily,
Actually, I still been. We probably got at least like 15, 20 more minutes.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Well, that makes my segue very awkward. Damn it! I gotta fucking edit that out now, otherwise I look like a dipshit who doesn't know what he's doing. God damn it! All right, let's continue this conversation.
On QAnon?
No, I don't know what the QAnon thing is really, because the conspiracy is, I didn't know this whole thing about John Roberts kidnapping a 15-year-old and raping her in her basement. That's different.
Well, I mean, I don't know where like the different points come from. I know basically, okay, some guy went on 4chan, and he was like, "I'm a deep insider in the Trump administration," and
that's right.
My name is Q, and just spouting stuff.
Right. So the basics of the basics of the QAnon conspiracy that I know of is that there is a secret cabal of pedophiles and Satanists who are actually running the world, and Trump is fighting a covert war behind the scenes against them. The person who's releasing all the details of this covert war is an anonymous 4chan poster by the name of Q. Hence QAnon. So I don't know why I need to elaborate on that, because like Tina pointed out, there's no one who in this country who doesn't already know the conspiracy of QAnon.
I think what's more fascinating is why it's become so popular that we even have members of Congress that believe in it.
I think Epstein helped.
Yeah, that is a big theory about why it did become so popular, is they actually did find and convict this guy.
Yeah, usually the funny thing about okay.
There's a delete between people are friends with this guy who was like a pedophile, to then go, oh, and that's because they're all Satanist pedophiles that are like killing babies and drinking their adrenochrome. Okay, one, babies don't use adrenochrome. I don't know where that came from, but and well, the other part of it is like they're doing this to like maintain their youth. Have you seen some of these people
without makeup on?
He's an old man.
Oh, fucking
maintaining his youth. He's not doing a good job.
The adrenochrome's not working. You should have moved on by now.
Different substance to harvest from babies.
Yeah. A lot of it, too, is the Pizzagate thing that happened in 2016, 2015, right, too?
So my theory of where it comes from is that these people, it's like, how do I put this? Oh, if you come up with this conspiracy theory that like the global liberal elite are all pedophiles, and like that you're fighting to like help children, right? That always sounds good. You like tell them, oh, I'm gonna fight pedophilia. That's like a good thing, obviously. But the thing is, obviously, this conspiracy theory is outlandish and fake and like not true. So it's a way for these people to like say they support something good, because every politician they continue to support doesn't do anything to like actually help children. In like if you actually research it, the greatest source of like trafficked children is like migrant children who are trafficked and then used to for slave labor. QAnon doesn't touch on that. And way that if you're like, oh, we need to like help children, and you see the way that Trump administration has treated like immigrant children. I mean, it's just, it's horrendous. It allows you to basically ignore all those things in favor of, oh, but I'm going against like the big bad guy.
The system.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take down the global pedophile elites. And so that's what I think it is. I think it's a group of people who want to feel like they're doing good in the world without actually like doing anything helpful for like anyone.
Sounds like you had something to say, Karen.
No, not really.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess this I could bring up the movie that of controversy this year, Cuties. Do you?
Let's talk
have
about
any
Cuties.
opinion on
Okay,
that?
what do
I didn't.
Jeremy? What are your thoughts on Cuties?
Did not watch it. Well, okay. So first, I was like, okay. I mean, is it really as bad as they're saying? Like, why would they wouldn't actually make a movie that was that bad? There's
It
no
was.
way. And then I saw like a review of it, and I saw clips, and I was like, yeah, this is not really at all. And then then the director, okay, and then people were like, oh, you don't understand, it's French. And I'm like, well,
That's the defense. It's French.
yeah. One, I have never been a proponent or a believer in
Of the French.
idea that be like, oh, it's okay because this culture like accepts it. Like, no, that's stupid. Be like that. No, that's just wrong.
No, right is right and wrong is wrong.
Yeah, like killing, is bad. Torture.
I
is
mean,
bad.
But
But they're
okay, wait.
Saudi Arabia.
So
left
did
Islam.
you or did you
Anyway.
not see Cuties?
I never watched it.
I had a friend who watched it, and he told me don't watch it. No, he told me because I'm the one who told him about it because I saw the trailers. I thought this is really fucking weird. This is awkward. And then I told my friend about it, and I said Netflix is sort of endorsing pedophilia, and that's why how I put it. And he said that can't be it. And then he watched the movie. I didn't, and he said, yeah, don't watch it. It's really awkward.
Well, and then so I kind of stepped back and I was like, okay. And then I read the director's statement where she was like, oh no, it's like she tried to do like she failed in. I'm trying to remember of another good example of this, but basically she was like, oh no, it's like against that. It's showing like, oh, you saw it and like you thought it was sexual and that's why you're the bad guy. And
Yeah.
It's like, okay. It's like, all right, maybe. But then you see the clips and you're like, no. You filmed this.
I'm glad that you said that. No,
Well,
I really am because that was the argument I heard a lot of people pose to me saying like the film actually takes an anti pedophilia stance and an anti-exploitation of children. And I said my only thought was that like is there maybe a better way we can say we're anti-exploitation of children without having to exploit children?
And it's like Stephen King did this. And so the new It movie recently.
Oh God, if they had done the real
And then-
It adaptation.
Like, people started reading the book. And then, they're like the 5 boys randomly like have sex with a Bev.
Oh my God. No.
Oh, why did you put this in there? It literally serves like no story purpose. And they're like, how come the one scene you remember is when like a girl had sex with like 5 guys? And you're like,
That's memorable.
okay, hold on, stop. No, because I noticed something, it's my fault and not yours for putting it there.
That's a very good point. I mean, it's like, aha! Finger pointed ahead.
It's like, why? It's like Mr. King. You could have easily just been like, oh, that was cocaine. Boom. We got it.
Yeah, we all.
It's not
we all
an
know
ex- it's an explanation. We got it. But no, he has to. And so, yeah, I hate. Oh, well,
I
why
feel.
did you notice this obviously wrong thing to like put in my piece of art? Well, it's because you put it there.
I'm
for me
sorry.
to see.
There's no better way to inspect cocaine than doing cocaine. That's how you know. That's how you know.
You see
For
that,
sure.
Junior found this picture where it was like your at-home COVID test because they say you like lose your taste and smell. So it was like take a beer, crack it open, smell it, taste it, and then do it again, and then that's like the joke.
Oh my God.
I didn't think a lot of this cast would be about the use of artistic license.
Sometimes things just take their own route. You can't.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I guess you just gotta, if you're an artist, filmmaker, you just gotta make it and put it out there and let the world judge you.
You don't have to
Yeah.
make Cuties.
And I don't think Cuties was.
No, I think Cuties is something we can all unify on.
Hmm.
No,
Y'all
no,
really-
left, right, center. I feel like we should be able to unify on cuties.
Well, Jeffrey Epstein might have a different opinion of the movie.
I'm sure he would.
Think about it,
I was also kind of like thinking about this, maybe because it won like film reviews in France that were pretty favorable, right?
That's because film critics are pretentious and stupid.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, yeah, especially people in France are dumb.
Well, it sounds like we have no problem agreeing with the QAnon people that there's a certain pro-pedophilia group of people out there, the artistic crowd.
Well, I would say Hollywood just in general definitely has
A bad history of.
it's a very strong, many systemic issues within their ranks
Right.
of not just pedophilia, or exploiting children. I mean, like racism.
Was it Corey Feldman who said like the biggest problem in Hollywood today is pedophilia, and everyone laughed at him, and then later we found out?
Yeah. Well, now he's like crazy.
Is he crazy? I don't know. I mean, I just remember one interview.
Yeah, he said a lot about it. Corey Haim, his co-star in The Lost Boys, said a lot about it. They both talked about it, and
what-
yeah, I mean,
what-
I think that's always
What happened to Corey Haim?
He's the one that died, right?
But how did he die?
And
Did he
his
die of
mom is
It's
kind of
suicide.
railed against.
He's suicide. Corey Haim
Feldman.
died of suicide, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
Do you hard question here
Oh.
on the topic? I may as well ask it. Do you think the age of consent is too high in the United
Oh,
States?
fuck me, Tina, no!
We're not.
I'm just saying, if you look at the average around the world, it's actually, a year or two lower.
God
It
damn it.
depends on okay. Do I
Hard
think
take.
that two people who are under the age but are the same age should be prosecuted or in any way
Mhm.
sanctioned? No. Do I think an 18-year-old should be able to bang somebody who's 14? No.
Hmm.
So it
Mhm.
depends on it's a situational thing. I wouldn't say it should be quote lowered, but I do think there should not be as harsh
Stigma.
stigma against people of the same age group.
They'd say within 5 years or something like that.
I would say okay, below.
Wasn't that
most
the law in California that they passed a year or two ago? I don't remember exactly, but they shit. What was the actual details of that whole bill? I think there was a legal discrepancy in the sense that a 20-year-old gay guy has sex with a 14-year-old gay guy, and it's non-consensual. And under the straight provision, it would have been what do you call Romeo and Juliet sort of thing. I don't know exactly about it, but
No. I know what you're talking about. And then they fixed it, and then people started. Dumb QAnon people were like, "Oh, California has legalized pedophilia." It's okay. That's another thing. When you become a lawyer, reading it's
everything
infuriating
becomes pedophilia.
seeing bad news news agencies misrepresent, and I'm sure scientists deal with this whenever studies get reported. Misrepresenting new laws that are passed or changes to laws. They'll always be like, "Oh, you saw it with Oregon, who's they passed a thing to decriminalize drugs. Oh, Oregon legalized crack." It's okay, didn't do that. It's just instead of throwing somebody in prison, they're gonna try and get them actual help. And they're not gonna tax dollars and resources on a problem that the criminal justice system can't fix, in my view. At least in tone.
All right. Okay, so
It's not like you can smoke crack and rob a 7-Eleven. You're just not going to go to jail because.
okay, hold up. So now we've reached the point where I can segue into our next segment. Am I right?
No.
Okay, it's been about 15 minutes. Okay, I looked like an asshole earlier for doing this early, but I'm going to do it now. So once again, our guest tonight, Jeremy, had a heart out. Luckily, I think we're going to have him back on. He's an interesting guy. He has interesting perspectives. We'll definitely bring him back on. But just for his first appearance on the Tina and Karen podcast, we have to put him on the hot seat.
So, your buns feeling warm?
Yeah. Yeah, Bun's
Feeling
feeling
toasty.
warm. All right, feeling toasty. Okay, so Jeremy, the way this works is we end every guest on our podcast with a series of questions. The point of these is not to engage in a further conversation or discussion about it. It's just you don't have to answer as quickly as possible, not necessarily. You can think about it. There's just not going to be any follow-up questions is sort of the way this goes. So
And if I think a question is maybe, can I pass?
you can pass. Although it would make a less
right.
interesting podcast. All right.
I probably won't, but I like to have the option because I don't know what questions are going to get asked.
Of course. So you can
I mean, I
pass.
guess-
Can even object.
You
I
can
guess I answered.
don't
with the age of
object, just
consent,
pass.
so I don't know.
Don't object, Tina. God damn it.
Objection.
Okay, so Jeremy, are you ready?
Shoot.
All right. What is something you know a lot about?
Horror movies.
What is something you don't know much about?
Calculus.
What is your favorite sound?
My favorite sound?
Hmm. Silence.
Could be music.
Good song. Yeah,
Good
it's kind of
a
dumb,
good
but-
song.
Okay.
Was that
the type of music?
Whoa, I was told no follow-up questions.
God damn it, Tina. All right. If you had to have sex with a male celebrity, who would it be?
You don't have to choose just one.
Tina always likes to say that.
I do. It
Does it
always
make
gets
it?
a laugh.
It does. Did we lose him?
No. I'm just thinking. Adam Scott,
I don't know who that is.
Adam
Who's
Scott?
Adam Scott? Who's Adam Scott?
guy from Parks and Rec.
Which one? Which one is he? I know Parks and Rec. Which one is he?
He plays Amy Poehler's love interest.
Really? That guy?
Rob-
Oh, sorry. No follow-up questions. You're right. Really? That guy? God damn. All right. Is it because it kind of looks like... No. Do you believe in love at first sight?
No.
If you had $1 million, what would you like to do with it?
Take a vacation.
Extended vacation. Oh, no follow-up.
Yeah. If you got the chance to do one thing over again, what would it be?
No, this is tough.
Silence is golden.
Visit Hawaii.
Wait,
Okay.
you mean like you had a chance to visit Hawaii and you didn't?
No, you said do one thing over again. I visited when I was younger.
You didn't want to visit? Okay. You didn't want to visit Hawaii? Wow. Okay.
No,
That's
I thought it was if I had a chance to do one thing over again, what would it be?
yeah, like as in like you did something wrong in the past and you want to redo it.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood the question.
Okay. Get your driver's
High-
license.
That's a long-winded one. There's a lot of stuff there. Very,
All right,
very
okay.
deep in that answer.
All right. What is love?
Baby, don't hurt me.
Yes. God damn it. All right. This
People
podcast
get
was
straight,
not
but not.
this was not a pointless podcast. All right. We got the right guy. You answered correctly. Correct. All right. Do you believe in free will?
Yes, I do.
Do you believe in
Well-
God? What? What? Okay. Do you believe in God?
Some days.
If reincarnation exists, what would you like your next life to be?
A fucking baller.
If heaven exists, what would you like said to you at the pearly gates?
You didn't expect this, did you?
All right. What is one event or place you'd like to see before you die?
The Aurora Borealis.
Ooh, okay.
Ooh.
And finally, last question: are you right-handed or left-handed?
Righty.
Okay, great. Jeremy, you survived the hot seat. All right, thanks. All right. Tina, do you have any other questions you'd like to ask Jeremy at this time?
Who's gonna get to the playoffs first, the Kraken or the Mariners?
Ooh.
Did you really just ask that?
There had to be one Mariners question in here.
Hold up.
Kraken's gonna win the Stanley Cup before the Mariners get.
Oh.
Okay. You know, I was going to
man.
actually, we had a segment called Beat Tina, and we just didn't have time for it. I was going to bring it up. 90% of the questions were Mariners trivia. No, seriously, first question on the list. What professional sports team has the longest playoff drought in North America?
And is now a firm leader in first place because the Browns just made the playoff.
You said-
I don't even know who's in second now.
Now the Bills won their first playoff victory in 25 years. Oof.
Yeah. No, I'm going to be rooting for the Bills next week. I want to see the Bills in the Super Bowl. I really do.
I want to see him get the Super Bowl and lose.
Oh, you're
Not
such
to
a
Tom
downer.
Brady, right?
Really, fucking hell.
Not to Tom.
Okay.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah. I like Josh Allen.
No, this Tom Brady can go fuck himself.
Oh, he's not going to make it. If he makes it, then I'll. What can I do that's reasonable? I'll run around a Seattle City block in my underwear. I've done that before. I'll do it again.
Marty, Washington football team going to become the first 7-9 losing playoff team to lose their first playoff game.
It's a good.
They would be the first losing playoff team to lose their first.
Seattle and Carolina. Yep.
The Panthers won when they were 7-8-1.
Yep. That's true.
Goodness.
All right. No one saw that coming, did they? All right. Okay. For Tina and Karen, do the tube. Jeremy, Jessica, thank you for joining us. We'll gladly have you back on anytime.
For sure.
Mhm.
All right. For Tina and Karen, do the tube. I am Karen.
This is Tina.
All right. Everybody, stay
That's
safe.
Jessica.
Oh, God damn it. Stay safe and stay hydrated. We love you.